as well as our preschool leader. So let's get started. Welcome everyone to the August monthly meeting of the Hadley Public Schools. Do I have a motion to open this meeting?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you, everyone. We are going to start by covering any adjustments to the agenda. Annie, can you take us through them?
Certainly. So we've added, Ms. Winter will be taking us through the pre-K handbook after we hear from the principals about their building handbooks. Chris will provide an update on our trip to Smith and geothermal, but we won't have financial reports this evening. There isn't a lot. We're very early on, and we'll certainly have them in September. We don't have school committee minutes for you to approve this month. And although it does say vote next to each one of the handbooks, I realize that it doesn't have it listed under action items. So as action items, we will be asking you to vote on approving HAHES pre-K handbook. And if we go ahead with the reorg, that's up to you, Humara, depending on how many people are here, you would need to vote on that as well. And those are all of our adjustments.
All right. Well, maybe we start with all the discussion and leave all the voting to last, in case we're able to get another colleague or two. Okay, perfect. We'll now move into public comment. I don't see members of the public on this Zoom call, but if anyone wanted to make a public comment, just raise your digital hand and we'll give you 3 minutes. Ideally, it's content related to what's on the agenda. And if you're interested, please go ahead and raise your digital hand. All right, seeing none, we will move right into the presentation and discussion items. Item 4A is the approval of the Hopkins Academy Program of Studies. And here to tell us about is Principal Camuso.
Thanks. And this one should be pretty quick. You guys already approved the program of studies. I just made a couple of changes since I knew I was coming here for the handbook that had to be done. So we had a supplement to the program of studies, which was our 2 additional innovation pathways. And then at the same time, I added those and I added our 2 Hopkins pathways. Actually, the future educators were already in there, but I added the public safety. So I made those additions to the program of studies. And then I also updated the MCAS competency determination requirements that apparently had been outdated and we had missed that. So I just put in the current ones for the current and the next few years so that students and families had that accurate information. And then I did not say this part in advance, and you probably wouldn't notice, but Jason Burns went in and changed all those course numbers so that they matched the new numbering in Power School since we shifted from School Brains to Power School. So no major changes in that one. We weren't looking to do a whole new program of studies. I just figured I'd take that opportunity to do those couple of things. Any questions about those?
No questions.
I will say every time I look through the article, it's just much is offered. It's a lot.
Thanks. Everyone works hard to make it happen.
Cool.
Great. And that's the program of studies. All right, Tara's here. Thank you, Annie, for letting her in.
Yep.
That's the program of studies. And then will you take us through the Hopkins Academy Student Handbook?
Sure. So not too many changes, but a few things just to highlight. And if you have questions about them, I'm happy to answer. Obviously, we change, the year and anywhere it said School Brains to Power School, or hopefully anywhere where it said that. Hopefully we got them all. Most of our pronouns were already the gender neutral they, but there was a few that we had to change that were she/he. So we made some of those changes. We added some of the additional language around the law and the language regarding gender nonconforming students, so that was in the handbook, and added a few more examples of what restorative justice could look like to sort of help the community as well in the conduct section. Just added some minimal language in the academic integrity section, letting people know that there's some generative AI guidance, but not changing the policy. So the policy is, the same as it was before. And then a larger change was updating the Title IX section because there are some Title IX updates. So we put in that new language around Title IX as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions for April on either the program of studies or the handbook? And welcome, Tara. We're just on the first of the handbook reviews.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Last quarter. A lot of talk with and
Yeah, I know that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I can accurately answer where everybody stands on it, but I can tell you that the handbook is in the same place that it was last year, which is that for middle school, it's supposed to be off during the day from 7:30 to 2. If they needed to text their parent or something like that, they can ask for permission from their teacher. And then the high school has access to it during lunch and breakfast and passing time. And then similarly in class, they just need to request permission. Obviously, some high school teachers will use it more instructionally at that level. I think the middle school teachers try to stay more on the Chromebook just so it doesn't send confusing messages to middle school students about phone usage, which is one of the reasons why we're printing out all of the middle school schedules because we realize that they're on PowerSchool on the app on their phone, which is also sending a confusing message about not using your phone but needing to check your schedule.
Sure.
So we will have hard copies of those. But yeah, so that's where we are. It's the same policy, and high school also has access to their earbuds as well. Again, it shouldn't be when the teacher's talking or things like that. It's with permission. And then we've maintained the change to the consequence. So originally, after a third confiscation, a parent had to come pick it up, a parent or guardian. We had some concerns about the equity and the feasibility of some people being able to leave work to come do that. So we changed that so that if there's multiple offenses, instead a letter goes home asking the family to come in and try to problem solve because clearly there's a problem that their child has with the device. For the most part, we don't have a lot of repeat offenders or a huge problem as we've been tracking the data in terms of usage. You can see some particular students who clearly have some particular challenges. So we work with those students and families.
Thank you, April. I really appreciate that approach and taking the year to really understand usage, and it sounds like we've arrived at a good place. Great. All right, if there are no other questions, thank you, April. I'm expecting that you'll get a vote in affirmation at the end when we do all our votes. And feel free if you wanted to drop off, you're welcome to. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And-
My son's having a hard time out there with me being on a Zoom call. I think I've hit the age where me being in here and him being out there isn't going to work. So I'm going to have to be a different spot. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks. See you later. All right, we're going to move next to the approval of the the Hadley Elementary School handbook, and here to tell us about that is Principal Dowd. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for letting me present tonight. So you all received the summary of changes for the HES handbook. I'm just going to go over some, and like April, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me at the end. We too looked at things like dates, changing dates to the 2024-2025 school year, changing pronouns to be neutral. We changed throughout the handbook the language of school brains now to PowerSchool. So we'll made that shift. Couple little changes looking at, for some reason, we still had 10 miles an hour posted in the handbook, but we do have 5 miles an hour behind the rear of the building. So we just updated that language. The dismissal, we changed again our dismissal procedure at the end of last year due to concerns about safety and just having the adults, so many adults come in to the building at the end of the school year, at the end of the school day rather. So at the end of the school year, we did change that. So we updated in our handbook. We found it to be run very efficiently. It's more safe. The kids now get radioed to exit the building with staff monitoring the adults. They get reunified with their adult and they leave. So we've reduced how many adults are coming into the building. So that language was just updated in the handbook. I too added the cell phone language that aligns with the middle school policy at Hopkins. Again, we don't have many students at the younger age level bringing in cell phones, but those that do, the expectation is that the cell phones will be in backpacks. They will be off. If a student does need to use their cell phone with principal permission, they can do so. If they need to contact their parent in case of an emergency or a change in transportation at the end of the day. So students can have access to them. Again, we really only see it in the upper grades at the elementary school, so it's not a universal problem. We met with the wellness committee. The wellness committee decided, along with myself, that we should have more celebrations that have food. And so in conjunction with the school nurse, making sure that we take into account allergies, things that are happening in each classroom, we will, with principal approval, have some celebrations that have food coming in. We've already historically done it with the World's Fair, but this was just kind of opening up the door to some more celebrations with food. We changed our homework policy. We reduced the language and the expectations and really gave the classroom teachers the ability to determine what kind of homework that they'd like to send home. Grade level teams met at the end of last year in groups to see what homework should look like developmentally at each grade level. We also have students that might need modified homework or reduced homework. So we just want to take into account that it didn't really reflect what our past handbook homework summary looked like. So we just changed that language, made it shorter. We also this year are adding a fourth special. So we had a 3 rotation special, art, music, PE, and this year we're offering STEAM as a special. So now we'll be on a 4-day rotation, and we're really excited about that. And so we'll have just that as part of our 4-day rotation schedule. We added the Title IX language and the definitions aligned to the HA handbook. And then for this year, we added additional section listing possible intervention and consequences for behavior. One thing that we added that collectively staff felt would be a good use of our time was a lunch consequence. So almost like a lunch detention. Again, that kind of aligns with some consequences as students get older. I was already doing this on a case-to-case basis when kids were having a hard time. We don't want to take away recess, but lunch is a natural time to come and sit with the principal and talk about behavior challenges, what students need. So we did feel like we should add that as a possible consequences so families are aware that your child might have to endure a lunch with Principal Dowd and talk about some things we could do different. And so we put that in the handbook as well.
There are worse things, Jen Dowd.
I think that depends on who you ask, but, so that's really those are all the updates. If anybody has any questions about this or anything else, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Jen? Seems pretty straightforward.
I just want to say how pumped I am to have STEAM Lab as a special.
It's gonna be wonderful.
You can say something less serious. Page 41, it says, students should leave other students' snow projects and forts alone. I think it's just general good advice, but and that.
Sometimes you really have to spell it out, Paul, you
Sure,
know,
very
the kids
clear.
need explicit instruction in so many different areas, but thank you for picking that
Got
up.
it all covered, yeah.
Jen, I did notice that there was among the prohibited things on school bus was talking to the bus driver. And I had questions about that, like if there were something to be talked about, you know, a kid was in distress or something was happening or how is that rule conveyed and how strongly is that upheld?
That's an excellent question. It's not a rule that's actually really upheld a lot. I do like to reference it if we do have a student or students that are trying to distract the driver. And so it has to be on a case-to-case basis. We do review bus safety rules at the start of the school year, and so we have an evacuation drill. That's our time to go over and talk about the rules on the bus. Another thing that we've done that's really wonderful, I think, is tied in our Hawks behavior with the bus. And so we talk about, making sure that we're staying safe and that we're always willing to help. We go over safety if there is an issue, if a fellow student is in distress, if somebody is sick, if somebody is hurt. Of course, we want to notify the bus driver immediately. And so, how do we do that, and how do we do that safely? So our bus drivers are wonderful. They have a great dialogue with students. They do need to focus on the road because that's their primary, getting kids home safe. But we review a lot of these rules, whether they're in our handbook, or just, good teaching practices. We are always talking to our students about safety and advocating when you need help.
Great.
Great question, though.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other final questions about the the HES handbook changes? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and save this to the end as we're saving all our votes to the end. And I see our fifth member has joined, so that's great. When it comes time to voting, we'll have everyone's votes on them. Thank you, Jen Dowd, for presenting, and feel free as well to get back to your beautiful children. Or feel
They're
free to stay.
teenagers, they don't want me, so it's all set. I don't have April's problem.
All right. We're going to move on next to item 4D, the approval of the pre-K handbook. And here to tell us about it is the director of the program, Lauren Winter. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. This will be super quick. Ours, again, was just updating the years to reflect the school year. We also had a staff member with a wonderful life event, so we had to update the name change for that. And we also updated our rates for the half day, the extended morning, and full day program that were voted on back, I believe, in the spring. So those were updated for our families. And aside from that, that's really preschool did not have the same drop off or pickup that needed to be changed. Everything worked pretty smoothly on our end, so we were able to keep all of those things the same, and so that stays.
Right, terrific. And by the way, I just have to say that I'm not sure it's possible that this happened in previous years, but this is the first time I remember doing all three sort of Hopkins, Hadley Elementary School, and preschool handbooks in one fell swoop. And it's just really nice to review all of them together. So thank you for having the preschool handbook alongside. And it's really great how we can see the policies and how they contrast as students age and get into the higher years. Any questions or comments for Lauren on the preschool handbook? Okay, seeing none, we will move ahead then. And thank you, Lauren, for
Thank you.
coming. And I'm sure you'll get a positive vote later in the meeting. All right. We're going to move next to the item 4E, school committee reorganization. Now, this is something that ordinarily happens right after elections, but we have, for all kinds of reasons, have just not been able to get to it. So here we are, all five of us are here, and we need to talk about the roles of school committee chair, vice chair, two policy subcommittee representatives, a representative for CES, one for the town capital committee, and an alternate, as well as a rep for the tri-board / finance committee. So I will open the floor for nominations for any of those positions and would love to hear from everyone about what they'd like to do this next year.
And if I may, I will add, you certainly can change roles and you're not required to. I just wanted to put that out there too. So if you are doing something you really enjoy, or you're not required to.
Thank you, Annie.
Sure, if everybody gets roles. I think everybody's done it many times. Primera, you're really good at this. Any? I understand it's the for work. I understand if you want to. You know, that you say I'm not really in need of a change. Somebody tired of a role or would like to see what we can do to accommodate.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I do enjoy serving as your chair. I do feel like I've learned a lot in the role and continue to learn a lot in the role. I'd be willing to accept a nomination, and I also would support whatever the team wishes.
If that was Paul nominating, I would second that, or I would also nominate. I think you're fantastic as chair. I feel like the meetings run smoothly, effectively, and very timely. And I don't feel a need to change it. I know Christine and Ethan haven't been on as long. I don't know if they have an area that they'd want to explore when we go down to looking at subcommittees, but I am really open to whatever, and I'm happy to stay where I am, or I'm happy to step aside if somebody else wants to step in and try out a role. So I'm flexible with that, but I do nominate or second you for Chair Humira.
So I heard a nomination from Paul and a second from Tara. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Because I'm having an issue with my,
we can probably hear you better. Chris, I think you're on the iPhone. You may want to disable the other one you're logged in on.
oh, okay, I'm not sure. Okay, let's see if I can do that.
That might get rid of the echoing.
Oh,
There you
all
go. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
okay, so I, are we doing each one individually, like, or are we doing as a block voting? Or just curious?
I was thinking about if we had a nomination and a second for a chair discussion and a vote, then once that's taken care of, I can just fade back into the wings and the chair is in charge of the rest of the votes.
That works for me.
All right. There's a first and a second. Any discussion?
I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Chris.
I think the discussion's already been had. I think we are, I won't speak for anyone else, but I'm on board. Let's do it.
Thank you, Ethan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much.
Humira, it's your show.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I enjoy serving as your chair and I will continue to do so. As it relates to the role for vice chair, I welcome, I'll open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Sure, such a good. They really don't. You mentioned all the glory. Should say if somebody else is. I really couldn't point this to a goodie. And it's only if you ever out. So and really happen.
I have to say that I appreciate your role as vice chair, particularly because of some of the big projects that you've been on and knowing that if I'm out, that someone who's responsible for some of those big projects is at the ready, is helpful. Annie, was that a hand?
That was me saying goodbye to Tom. That's all. But
Right. Very good. Bye, Tom. Anyone else have any thoughts regarding the role of the vice chair?
I don't see a need for a change either, and I would be happy to place a nomination for Paul to remain in vice chair. I don't see a need for a change right now. I think that we're
I second.
doing great.
All right. There's a motion by Tara and a second by Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Paul, for serving as vice chair. Moving on to the two policy subcommittee representatives. Ethan and Chris, you've been doing a great job. We've really appreciated the pace with which you've brought things to us. I think we've been in this configuration for a year. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do either of you have thoughts on continuing to serve in this role, or trying something else? What's on your minds?
I actually would love to stay on this subcommittee. Um, so I don't know. And I, of course, enjoy working with Ethan. So, yeah, I would like to remain on the policy subcommittee.
Great. Ethan, how about you?
Same here. All I can think about is like jobs not done. Like we started this.
I know.
But I know there's a lot of policies still to go, but
Yep.
I feel like to leave now would leave like a job halfway through.
And I have to say, when I served in the policy subcommittee, it was at a time when the policies hadn't been reviewed for like 12 years. And so we went steadily through the entire manual. I believe it was Linda Dunleavy and I who did that in way back. And it's actually a really great way to understand what the full gamut of policies are. So another year might help you get there, or most of the way there.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Great. Do I hear a motion to nominate Ethan and Chris Pip into the role of policy subcommittee?
I'll motion.
Okay. And is there a second?
I motioned.
All right. And all in favor?
Aye.
Can we vote for ourselves? I didn't know if we could second for ourselves or.
You can read it on.
Okay.
So up there.
Well,
Vote for yourselves.
really,
Thank you.
really good point. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the CES representative, Tara, how has that been? And would you like to continue to serve in that role?
It's been good. I don't mind continuing to serve in that role. I think I've done it 2 years now. And if there's somebody else that has a really strong interest, then that's okay with me too. Otherwise, I'm happy to stay put and keep moving forward with them.
All right, let's ask that question. Is there anyone on the team who would like to serve on the role as CES representative?
I think Tara's done a great job.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would like Tara to continue serving in that role.
All right, I'll take that as a motion. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you, Tara.
Yeah,
All
thank-
right. Moving on next to the nomination for representative to Town Capital Committee and an alternate representative. I think, Christine, you have been serving in this role, and I have to say, I really appreciate you in this role because you have a lot of longstanding relationships with people in town. And so I think that just really helps facilitate that communication. And I'm curious to know what your experience has been like and whether you'd like to continue to serve in that role.
Yeah, I will be the first. I mean, I think the first time I wasn't sure if I was the alternate or the rep, and so things got a little confusing for me. But then, no, I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of nice to be on the, to hear the other departments and to hear what they're thinking, and yeah, I've actually enjoyed the position, so I'm more than willing to do it. If unless somebody else wants to, that would be, fine too. But yeah, I would gladly stay.
Chris, who has your alternate been?
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's
Paul.
Paul. I think it's Paul.
And I think the confusion's my fault. I think originally it was sort of me and I was making the meeting. So love that you're doing that, Chris. If you can keep doing it, I
Sure.
appreciate it.
And Paul, would you be willing to continue to serve as an alternate, or is that something you'd like to? Yeah, is that all right?
I could be the alternate, sure. And, just ping me if
Great. Do I hear a motion to nominate Christine Pripchinsky as the Town Capital Committee liaison, as well as Paul as the alternative?
So,
Thank you, Ethan. And I think, Paul, you seconded that. All-
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great. Motion passes. Thank you so much. And finally, I'll open the floor for nominations for school committee representative at the tri-board or finance meeting. I have to say that the tri-board has not really met regularly. And so this is a very light responsibility. And I actually, it's so light that I really welcome someone else being in that role if they wanted to sporadically, be pulled into tri-board and finance, meetings. Perhaps a different person in this role might mean that the tri-board would decide to meet again. I don't know. So I'll just put it out there. Would anyone like to serve as the school committee rep at the tri-board / finance meetings?
those, who are,
It's usually, yeah, I'm sorry, Marco.
No, please, Anne.
Yeah, they really don't meet all that frequently. It's primarily during budget time. And so that becomes the town FinCom, a representative of the school committee, and the select board. And it really is predominantly during budget season. And there's a couple meetings around that time. They might convene those groups if I would imagine if there was some concern, on the horizon, if there was some sort of fiscal concern, probably met a little bit more during COVID, for
yes, they
example.
did. Yes, they did.
You're doing that.
They met all the time. They met all the time.
So that obviously things were really unsettled, but for the most part, it's really just budget time.
And I remember the formation of that group. That was way back when there was hardly any conversation between those departments. I think it was in my first term. I wasn't on that team, but I remember it was the entire school committee that met with the entire finance team and the entire select board. And that was originally, the first tri-board was all the boards meeting together. And since then it's been pared back and does not happen as often. So
If I could just build on that, Humira, I think one thing that's changed too is, so that was a way to get communication among all those groups and between all those groups. I will say that which is not typical in any town, it's not just Hadley, but I also attend the town department meetings every single month. So there's also a lot more communication that occurs. So perhaps that also corresponds with less of a need to bring everyone together. And we have a select board liaison who's typically at the meetings, also at our meetings. So there's other ways that communication's happening. I just wanted to add that.
thank you. All right, so a final call for anyone who is interested in that role. And if there is no one who is jumping at this opportunity, then I will continue to serve as the placeholder there. So
big hop out. My only concern in need to them on tomorrow's. Maybe you and I, 1 and 2, we're alternates, or I'm the primary or the alternate. It's something like that. So if I've never gone, one of us.
love that. Yeah.
Is that meeting moved back in person? When it does meet, if they meet?
Annie, when was that last meeting?
Probably the last time we did budget and it was hybrid. So the town gives you both options.
That's
They
what it
have
was.
a hybrid meeting. Yeah.
I patched in by Zoom, so it was pretty easy to do.
That's easier.
So, Paul, would you like to serve as the primary or the alternate? Okay,
Interesting.
great. Thank you so much. And I will be your alternate.
We have a vote in a second.
I motion Paul to be the first and Humira to be the second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, very good.
That's a smiley thing there that people could do. There's a lot
Well,
of
I
green.
only laugh because I was on that tri board during COVID and it was like a monthly meeting for like 3 hours.
Thank you. And delayed thank you for all the
It was fun. It was
for
fun.
that. All right. Those were good times indeed. All right, moving next. Well, thank you everyone for your role. I know it isn't always easy and the pay is not great, but we really appreciate your contributions and it makes us a really great team. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move next to the 10-year capital plan. Annie and Chris, tell us about that.
Yeah, so Chris will take you through changes in the plan itself, which is linked into the agenda. And just a reminder for everyone that October 24th is special town meeting. To my knowledge, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I do not believe that the select board has finalized the STM warrant, the special town meeting warrant. I think there are placeholders. And it's clear, as Chris will point out to you, the items which are just right what you see, funding source, town capital, fiscal year 25, that Chris submitted to the town. But he'll take you through the changes to the plan, also went to the town, and we won't know. It looks like on their schedule that September 16th, the town finance committee, CPA committee, capital planning committee recommendations will be complete. And the warrant and motions will be prepared and sent to town council for review. So they're still discussing them now. But please mark your calendars for September 24th. That's October 24th, excuse me.
Great, thank you.
So you want to take them through?
Sure. First of all, I've been having a little bit of internet issues, so I'm keeping my camera off, hoping that just audio might save a little bandwidth and keep me connected. So I apologize for you not seeing my smiling face. I know how disappointed you are, but we'll try to get through this together. So we have a few items that we basically just moved around on the capital plan. I highlighted those in yellow in the notes column to the far right. Items like replace glazing at entry by cafeteria. We're assuming that's the windows. We replaced that whole door entranceway, windows, doors, everything, about 10 years ago. And so we just couldn't see the need to do anything with that at this point in time. There's nothing wrong with it. So we moved that way out to FY33. The next one down, replace ceiling tiles with washable tiles in kitchen. I did review the ceiling tiles in the kitchen area. To be honest, I was shocked at how clean they were. You're just thinking a kitchen environment, cooking that much food, and they weren't. They were really in very good condition. I'm not quite honestly even sure that's necessary, which is why it's kind of marked in like that reddish color, the dollar amount, because I mean, I don't know the last time these ceiling tiles were replaced, but it wasn't anytime soon, and they're really looking good. So we kicked that one down the road to FY34. So we've got 10 years to wait, I guess, before we have to make any kind of decision on that. We also moved out vinyl tile in classrooms and in corridors. Moved from FY29 to FY33. Again, just to bump it out, we reviewed the tiles in the hallways and the vinyl tile in the classroom. There are some other tile types that are remaining earlier on in this capital plan, but the tiles really look very, very good in the entire school building. And we just couldn't see, needing to do this. I reviewed them with Jeff Mish. We walked the building and we said, really, the only reason to change the tiles was just if you wanted to change the color or something. It has nothing to do at this point in time with the condition of them. So we just bumped it out a little bit.
And if I may, just while you're on that topic, that was a recommendation that came in the Colliers plan when we asked them to tell us what would upgrade our building to be, rather than knocking down a building and trying to build, find the money to build a new one, what would modernize our building. And they pointed to the tile as something that we could change if we wanted to.
That's correct.
I see.
Yeah, it's not a level 1 change, it's a level 2. So it's less urgent in their eyes, certainly.
Yes.
So we like I said, we just bumped it out a little bit. It's still on the plan, and we can determine really as we go forward. If the tiles are still in great shape, we can continue to push them off.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I see Chris's hand. Chris?
Yes, so I see here that it says replace asbestos floor tile in classroom 201, 203, 204, and 205. Above that, is that still happening? Did you-
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes, we put in for that to the town for this year.
okay, just that,
Now,
My-
I
my old
think it's
class-
important. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm just saying, it was my old classroom. I get very,
Oh. Yeah, it's important to mention that, really these asbestos tiles have been there for years. There's nothing wrong with them. They're only a problem if they actually get broken and exposed. So I just really want to make sure that that's clear that, this is not, an issue. It's really just they do have to be replaced at some point in time, but
That's
any,
it with the two other, those were other classrooms that had already had those replaced. Correct.
that's correct. Yes.
I remember that.
Great, thank you.
On the next page, really, it's essentially all the geothermal projects. You can see that these are kind of boxed out in this page, and really a lot of these items we're just moving them to kind of align more with the geothermal project. So, replacing casework in classrooms, that's essentially to kind of clean up where the univents are currently. They're going to be replaced with new univents. It's doubtful that these univents are going to be exactly the same size as the 70-year-old units they're replacing. So, replacing the casework means really we're going to have to do something to not just have this odd opening in the classroom. But again, you don't really want to do it too early because the univents might not even be changed yet. So we just move that out a little bit. We also have a little further down replacing of the membrane roof. And that is not moved at this point in time. They had it in FY 31 and 32. The question I had on it is, if we're going to put solar on the roof, should we be replacing the roof at the same time as the solar? And that may be the case. It's really just to put it on your radar at this point in time.
Yes, if we're putting solar on a roof, we're gonna want to make sure that we're changing the roof first before we're bracketing on solar. And also, I'm looking forward to working on solar designs, whether that ends up being, carport in nature or on a field, and not on a roof at all. But I'm really glad that you're asking the question about the roof, and I'm sure you're keeping in mind what kinds of roofs will make us make our envelope as tight as it can be for the geothermal investment to bear fruit in the way that we hope that it will.
Yeah, basically, when you do a roof with the plans of adding solar to it, you can make it essentially solar ready, meaning that they will. There's several kinds of ways of attaching panels to a building, but they can put braces underneath the roofing so that when you put mounting brackets and everything onto the roof, it'll have something to actually grip to.
Nice,
And so we would end up doing something like that at that point in time.
great.
The next item that we moved, provide heating and cooling for the kitchen. We moved that to FY 26, again, part of the geothermal project. So we just want to kind of keep it in line with all of that. Air handling units and add cooling in gym, moved from FY 28 to 26 again. It would be part of geothermal. And of course, really depending on how the entire geothermal project goes, determines a lot of this. I mean, if it comes back and it's decided it's not something that is going to work for us, then, well, all bets are off and we kind of move these around as needed. But, at this point in time, we're under the assumption that it will, look good. So we're just trying to get everything aligned.
Great.
Remove and replace existing oil tank, and it could possibly, I said should not be, it really should say might not be needed with HVAC project because a lot of it depends on if we're going to need oil going down the road, and that's a discussion for a little bit later in the meeting when we discuss our geothermal visit to Smith College.
Yes.
Replacing steamer and kitchen on the next page. Food Services said they do not want or need a new steamer. They love their steamer. Apparently, it's old, functions incredibly well, and they, the phrase "they don't make them like they used to" apparently applies to kitchen steamers. So, we don't want to anger the kitchen. We moved that off to FY32, and we'll see how it is at that point.
Great.
I'm trying to line it up here. Existing local light switching to centralized lighting controls incorporate daylight harvesting. So we moved that from FY 28 and 29 to 31 and 32, really just to, we're going to be dealing with the entire geothermal process for quite some time. And those are big projects, and we'd really want all geothermal done before we consider something like that. So we moved them out. Again, mill repair base, top coat, and restripe parking lots and drives, and the same with entry drives. Put that in a box because it's essentially the same project. But if we're going to have solar and a canopy in the parking lot, we're probably going to want to have that all put on, as one part of the project. We don't want to put solar panels over an old parking lot with cracks in it, things like that. So we have to align that. So we just moved it into a year that would coincide with the rest of the geothermal project.
And Chris, if there are, major bumps and potholes as a result of our regular wear and tear from winter plowing, there are ways to keep us going until 26, 27 when we redo the whole lot. Are there ways for us to do that ongoing upkeep?
Yes, there are. Yeah. I mean, we already did one of the driveways that was really in bad shape. So we took care of that. And I don't know if you remember, but several years ago, we had issues with the drains where they were actually kind of collapsing into the ground. And so we firmed all that up and repaved around it. So we would do similar things like that,
Great.
to keep it going. We would never want to have, enormous potholes or anything like that in the parking lot.
Great.
A few of these next items are really just exit signs that they wanted to have, and we moved all of those just into FY25. Jeff Mish actually had someone coming in to take a look at those and give us a price. They just came in on Friday, I believe, so we didn't get a quote yet for them, but those will all be addressed this year. Let's see. Okay, then on the next page, we have 3 new items. A projector at HES in the cafeteria that basically projects onto the stage. That was a new item. We also had document cameras at Hadley Elementary for $9,800 again for next fiscal year. That was new. And replace floorings. Actually, there should be 2 news, and my apologies for that. Replacing lockers at HEF line 135. That's in FY28. It's surprising, really, that the lockers at HES are in the condition they're in. Again, because of the humidity that we see in the buildings in the summer, it's caused a great deal of rust in the lockers. I know I walked the building with Jen last week, and she was going to just put contact paper on the rusty shelves in the lockers just so the kids' coats wouldn't get ruined by it and everything. But there's even surface rust on the doors and on the tops of the lockers now. So we added that on, in a couple of years. And the floorings in the classrooms, again, the primary focus of Collier's visit was to take a look at Hopkins, but the flooring in Hadley Elementary, there's a lot of carpeting that's starting to tear. It's wearing out. It's ripping up from the floor. And so the reason I put flooring instead of carpeting is we really need to determine with the building principal if she would prefer vinyl tiles or carpeting in the classroom. So we utilized pricing that we had gotten for carpeting in the classrooms just from a pricing we got when we replaced a couple of them this year at Hopkins, but that's a little subject to change when we decide what kind of flooring we actually need. And then what I did on this capital plan was, rather than have these completed items scattered throughout the report, from now on, when an item is completed, I'm just going to move it to this last page at the bottom of the report, and those are all items in green that we've already taken care of. So, again, the capital report is pretty long as it is. We just hated to have items we really didn't need to look at anymore, just in the middle of everything else. So just,
And it's also nice to see our done column. So thank you for keeping that on there. Puts it
no
in
one
context.
appreciates the done column more than I do, I can tell you that. So
I do have a question about the lockers. I seem to recall that not too long ago, we had electrostatic painters come through and redo the lockers. Was that at HES or was that at Hopkins?
we had people come in. I can tell you that it is just incredibly hard to get anyone to come in and do work. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It really, it's shocking. We finally got someone to come from Eastern Mass to take a look at the lockers at Hopkins. And he said, for the price I'm going to charge you to do this, you would be far better off just buying new lockers. And really, that was only to paint the outsides, just to, to kind of make them look better. If you look at the insides of a lot of the Hopkins lockers, it's very similar to Hadley Elementary at this point, in that they're all rusty inside. The only difference is at least the lockers in Hopkins are, 60 years old versus less than 30 for HES. But those are actually items that we put forward to the town for this year. Replace hall lockers. It's on page 1 of the report. It's almost $287,000, and that was submitted to the town for the capital, for the special town meeting.
For this fall?
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, and combining the two schools and that quantity of lockers still doesn't attract vendors at the right price, huh? To like do some electrostatic painting so that we could, not have to throw away what may be perfectly good, albeit rusting lockers.
Yeah, I mean, it became such an issue, and I reached out to everyone that I could find in Western Mass. A lot of them are just no longer doing it. I got a lot of, oh, we used to do that, we don't anymore. And, the one person that came out was actually from, pretty far in Eastern Mass.
Yeah.
And that was his recommendation. I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't mind taking on a job that, that paid him well, but he just said, this is crazy. You should just replace him.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. Well, if and when those go on the list of things to give away or junk or whatever, I'll take a locker for my entryway so that I can get my kids to store their shoes and their jackets in the right place. I think we could all probably benefit from that. So, Chris Phipp, your hand is up.
This is just I guess I don't know, one of those weird questions where, so we can't just Rust-Oleum, like spray paint them? There's not, you have to actually use something else. That's just me being, DIY. Why can't we just use a can of spray paint kind of thing? But I guess, is there a reason for that?
the kind of spray paint that you would buy like in a hardware store or something. I mean, you'd end up going through doing it. First of all, I mean, it would be very difficult to actually make it look good. And I don't say that to be insulting or anything, but it has to be a very even coating, which is very tricky to do. And then it's just not durable enough, really, that it would last more than a year or two, and then you'd be in the same boat again.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was only because she had mentioned using contact paper, and I'm thinking, can't we just, spray paint them? But I'm sure there's obviously more to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the inside of the lockers where the majority of the rust is, so, just imagine you've got approximately a 12 by 12 inch shelf, a 12 by 12 inch bottom of the locker.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have to get into each locker with a wire brush and brush away and remove as much of the rust as possible. And then, clean that so that the paint would actually have something to adhere to. and then spray paint on top of that. And again, just for the inside of the lockers, I guess appearance wouldn't be as important as on the outside, but it
Right.
would just be, it's a lot of work. You
Yeah.
wouldn't just be able to spray over the rust.
Okay, thanks. I know that probably was a crazy question. It just,
No, it
Yeah.
makes sense to ask, certainly.
Yeah, all good questions. Tara,
I have two questions, actually. When you say it's going on the capital, when you say it's going to the town this year, is that just the high school, or is that the high school and the elementary school for new lockers?
It's just the high school this year.
Okay. And so then my other question is, do we feel like the lockers and I guess the flooring as well, in the elementary school are okay to wait to 27, 28? I'm just thinking about, a high schooler is probably not going to fiddle and fidget with a carpet in there, but a student that's in the elementary school in first grade or kindergarten might. And then the same things with the lockers. I just didn't know if that was something that could wait a few more years.
Yeah, what I tried to do just with the placement of them, if you look at the bottom of the report, last page. Oh, of course, I cut it off. My apologies. I didn't include that when I printed it out. It had a total for each year for each item, like town capital, school choice, etc. And what I tried to do was kind of level out the town capital, because for the next few years, we're going to be asking very large amounts of money for the geothermal project. And so by adding another $300,000 for lockers and flooring, it just, it just became a very large item. I don't for a second dispute the fact that it's needed. I was just trying to place it in a time frame that would kind of work both with the town and with the schools. It can certainly be moved to wherever, you'd like to see it. That this is your plan ultimately.
Well, I wonder if at least, if an easy Band-Aid is the contact paper for now and prevents kids from catching their little fingers or arms on rust, sure. But then the flooring, maybe keeping us posted on how much it deteriorates as the years go on. Not as the years, as the months go on, to see if we need to maybe adjust kind of where it's placed in the plan. I mean, I think, not to put Jen on the spot, I think she probably knows that the best. So maybe her keeping track of, geez, this is looking a lot worse already, and it's only, this amount of time in the year. I don't think we can wait 3 years.
I'd be happy to do that. I already have my eye on a couple different classrooms. We're lucky we have such a generous community, and that we've been buying carpets to throw over carpets that might be threading or getting caught in vacuum cleaners and such. And so I definitely will keep everybody updated if it's an issue. I'll let you know. And Chris has been great. He's been walking the building with me. And we've been kind of eyeballing all the different projects. We've already done so many, which has just been wonderful to see outside and our playground and everything. So we've had a lot going on, but we'll definitely continue to monitor the flooring and also the locker situation.
thank you, Jen.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Chris on this capital plan? Revisions of which years things might fall in. All told, the new categories are, they're not in the hundreds of thousands. I think the new items, come in, perhaps with the exception of replaced lockers, all told, come in less than $500,000. But any other questions for Chris on all of this?
I do have a quick question. So we're saying that we're pushing back the lockers in the elementary school for 3 years. Is that really going to make that much of a difference? I don't know. I feel like I don't want to. I understand the geothermal is going to be a big ticket item, but I also don't want people to think that that we're not conscious of what the elementary school needs as well. Because Tara's right. I mean, it is a little more of a, I don't want students to get hurt on these lockers if there is rust or it just, I've seen what what the lockers are at the elementary school or at the high school level. The kids throw their stuff in them. They abuse them. They don't, it's just not the same as, what the kids need at the elementary school, which I
So-
think is important.
Chris, really good question to ask. And I wonder, so lockers, in order to avoid them falling on, on the geothermal years, if you will, we could move it to after, or we could move it to before.
I guess that's, yeah, what are we looking at in terms of where it'll fall to where? Is it just best to address it now?
It's a good question. What would it look like, Annie and Chris, if we were to have both schools replacing their lockers at the same time, maybe have, a purchasing agreement that allows us to get a better rate because you're doing both schools at once. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll just add quickly, Chris, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but our items for this year were due on August 20th. So for this special town meeting. So I know that we could add, if there's something we wanted to take out from our request from this year, but those items were due actually earlier than August 20th toward the beginning of the month. I do want to clarify something, and Jen, if I'm mistaken, please do let me know that Jen, which I really appreciate and I share with her, as does Chris, we have very high standards for how the buildings look. We believe that children and adults and families want to see attractive, clean buildings. I think our biggest concern at the elementary school is the appearance of the lockers. I'm not aware of any child being injured or anything like that, just when we were talking about safety of lockers. And still, appearance matters to us greatly, but I just want to be clear about that.
Right, and I can clarify that because I've gone through almost every single locker in the building, and with the custodial staff. So there are some lockers that have extreme rust. I would say the most rusty lockers are in the 5th and 6th grade hallway. That's the feedback that I've gotten. Obviously, preschool, kindergarten, those lockers, while the kids use them, they are maintained by the staff a little bit more than the 5th and 6th grade hallway. So the 5th and 6th grade hallway, definitely, those lockers look a little bit worse for wear. But there have not been any injuries that I am aware of pertaining to lockers. If there were lockers that were completely rusted through, I'm not aware of them. But with that being said, there were a couple lockers that needed the doors fixed to prevent any issues. Those have been addressed by the custodial staff. I think the contact paper for right now is a good solution, just to make sure that there's no rust that gets on things like jackets or books, and so that we just maintain the materials. We're lucky that we have more lockers than we do students, although that's getting smaller and smaller due to our school choice numbers. But we are able to skip over lockers that are not, that we would prefer to use other lockers that are a little bit more clean, and rust free. So again, it is aesthetically not, what I would love to see it at, but it's not at a risk of any students. And I've not had any reports, again, of students getting hurt by rusty lockers. If I did, then I definitely would have, advocated that we bump that project up. But really, it's up to you. The flooring for me would be more of a concern in the future, than the lockers. Lockers are also for a 5-year-old, we can make the argument that they may not need a locker. We could do cubbies. There's lots of other things we could do. But again, I'd be happy to update everyone and let you know how the contact paper goes. If it's, a nice solution to the problem. We just ordered it, so it should be in on Wednesday. And we're hoping to get some lockers looking a little nicer inside. But again, not all the lockers are rusty. Not every single one is rusty. And we're able to move students to different lockers depending on what they look like inside.
Thank you, Jen. That's very helpful context. Tara?
So maybe it's something that we just kind of keep an eye on now, and if it's
Mhm.
something where the situation changes between now and the spring annual meeting, then we can
Mhm.
always readdress it at that point.
And I'd be happy to go through each locker in all the hallways and really make an itemized list of, how many are in really rough shape and what that looks like. I can also provide you all images of what they look like inside. Again, Hopkins lockers are what, 60 years old, ours are 30. You know, cost, thinking about cost, is it helpful to do it all at one time? I'm not sure, but it's not, it would be nice to have, no children are getting harmed. So just thinking of that.
Thank you. That's helpful context.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm hearing is we should just keep an eye on it. And thank you, Jen, for keeping us posted on how the contact paper goes and in general, how the timeline, the existing theory on the timeline continues to support what we're seeing. Appreciate that.
So should I put that on for springtime? You guys would like an update on that?
I would say check in with Annie and see when the right time is, and we look forward to hearing back.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions on the capital plan?
We do have, lots of requests. Meeting 280,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Anything else?
Yes, let me just scroll back up. Let's see.
What's the total?
Total that we asked for FY 25 is $637,000.
We asked for last year. Remember we had the CPA for the field. Not just like we were talking about the geothermal being a big ask this year. The thing this year, the things maybe either Sarah, you said that's sort of things that we need to do now that we don't come with 2, 3, 4 years of big ask to the town. If it's all pressing, then
So a lot of the locker room funding for the locker room replacement at Hopkins, we did already have approved by town meeting. Right, it was a spring town meeting where that was already voted. So Chris, can you give us some clarity on what additional we're asking for and why?
Sure. So let me just see, FY 25, we are asking for some IT items, laptop replacements, some projectors at HES, Chromebook replacements. We're pretty much looking for 60 of those every year, just to keep the turnover going with new Chromebooks. We're asking for some modifications from the town for bathrooms to comply with ADA requirements. We are also asking for a little bit of money for signage, code compliant signage throughout, just to get that back up to speed. We are asking, let's see, for phase 1 of painting the interior of Hopkins Academy. We've painted some sections, but there's a lot of building, obviously, and it's been quite a while since it's been painted. So that's $95,000. Of course, the hallway lockers are $287,000. We also have the asbestos tiles in 1, 2, 3, 4 classrooms, $55,000. And there's some ceiling work that needs to be done in the cafeteria, and that's $68,000. That is it as far as, we have a lot more items that it would be paid for from school choice, but that's it for town capital items.
Right, and the amount of money that, oh, sorry, Paul, please
go ahead.
continue. I was just going to say the money that we already got approved for the girls and boys locker rooms, meaning the sports locker rooms, not the lockers in the hallway, that was already requested, approved, And that are we asking for any additional money for that at any point in time?
That's a difficult question to answer. They're working on the design work right now. The initial design they came forward with turned out to be about $600,000 over budget. So I said to them, okay, wait, let's not, let's take another look at this. We removed a lot of rooms. They had separate rooms for a lot of things. And I said, no, this can be open space. So we removed a lot of walls, which meant a lot of doors and windows. We made a lot of changes, and they said, okay, we're going to make these changes in your plans. We'll come back. We'll give you a new price. And they came back to me last week and said, okay, we made these changes. Your new price is $2.1 million. And I said, we were at 1.7 million. Now we're at 2.1 million after we took things away. Yes, we're going to have to look at that internally. And so he apparently looked at it internally. And I had several calls with him both last week and today to go over some additional items that we could remove. There seemed to be some inconsistencies with their pricing of it too, which I pointed out to them, and he had several. Oh, that's a good question. So I'm hoping that when we get that all narrowed down, we'll get a much more true representation of the price. I also met with the athletic director and gym teacher today at Hopkins just to get a kind of a final count of the number of lockers we'd need. It looked to me in their plans that they had way too many lockers that we were looking to put in, and they had $500 per locker as a price. And it turned out that after we counted all the teams and everything and how many people would actually be using the lockers per day, it turned out that we were able to cut about 50 lockers out of what they had. So, that was $25,000 right there. Sadly, not nearly enough, but we're just going through and making changes like that. I asked them about their choice of ceiling, and I said, wouldn't a suspended ceiling be more affordable? And they said, well, probably. And I said, well, then let's put that. They knew the budget ahead of time. That should have been in there in the beginning, and so that's kind of the back and forth we're dealing with now.
It sounds like once we lock into a price, any kind of modifications in the design kind of it's fair game for them to come back with whatever they want to, and we're not in a position to call out for 3 additional bids again necessarily. That's kind of tricky, Chris. I appreciate you managing that situation, and let us know if anything needs to be sort of like, if we need to go back to the drawing board when it comes to selecting a vendor that it's going to do right by us in terms of price.
Yeah, I mean, I made it very clear to them last week that, listen, we can't go back to the town and ask for that much money. I mean, that's just ridiculous, and so he understood where I was coming from with that, and it's kind of back to the drawing board. I sent him an email today just letting him know the number of lockers we could remove. And when you remove the lockers, you're not only removing the $25,000, you're also removing the 10% markup that the contractor would charge us for them, So every item we take out, there were extra showers that we removed, and it's not just the cost of the materials, it's also the cost of the markup that the contractor is going to charge us. So that's always 10%. So whenever every dollar you're cut, there's another 10 cents following it, and so that's what we're going through right now.
Thank you,
I'll
Chris.
keep you guys up to date on that.
Great. Okay, I'm going to keep us,
Just a
Tara.
check for Paul to know too, we are submitting to CPA, which is different than the capital. I don't know if the town views it differently or not when they're on the town floor approving things, but we do have the CPI item going in for the playground as well.
Right. We always have to make sure that the town members know that the CPA funding is coming out of a different bucket. It's already been allocated. It's not going to increase your taxes. So there's always that, but yes. Thank you for pointing that out.
My only question, I know we need to move on, is do we want to pursue the 286,000 for Hopkins lockers this year or delay? And I don't know the urgency of the need. I'm just concerned about multiple big asks for the town.
Yeah, that's a really good
This
question.
would mean if we delay it, we're delaying it several years. So not feasible given the
Chris and Annie, can that be
Or-
delayed?
Yeah, I can offer a suggestion potentially there. So it would appear, I'm assuming that on September 16th, when they are discussing, I've got to pull up my calendar, when FinCom CPA and the select board review the warrant and capital items. I have Monday, the 16th as a CPA meeting at 7. So I'm assuming on September 16th, that's when it says their recommendations are complete. So what certainly we could do is, and Chris Pip in your role as capital liaison, perhaps even what we could do is be present during some of these discussions where this group is trying to, because we're not the only town department that requested things. So we don't know what public safety has requested, the library, the COA, and then they have to sit down and say, okay, who's getting what? And certainly not every request. I doubt they have the revenues to fill every request. So that question, Paul, of should we keep it, should we not, might be better answered if we understood everything that they're weighing. It might be that I have no idea that this year there aren't a lot of other requests coming out of other departments, and it does make sense, and they foresee more requests next year. So what I can offer is at any point we could say we'd like to pull this particular request up until the time that the warrant is published. But certainly I can try to make sure that I'm listening in or attending meetings where this is being discussed.
Okay.
And maybe Chris Pip, you and I can pay attention to when the town capital group is meeting and get a sense of what else they're trying to figure out how to fund.
Thank you for that. Thank you for weighing whether it makes sense to pull it. A good point, Paul. Thank you. Okay, I want to point out that on the hour, there is a CPA meeting and we will be losing Annie, Tara, and possibly Chris or Jen, I think it is, to go speak with the CPA folks about the new kind of flooring that would be for our new playground. So thank you so much, team, for taking that ask to the CPA. We're optimistic and rooting for you. Let's see if we can make our way through as much as possible in the remaining time that we have. All right, so speed round, if possible. NEASC membership, Annie's already told us that other towns are pulling out of this. It's really expensive. And she's asking us to vote on not being a member going forward. Annie, is there anything else to add to that, or can we leave it at
No, I
that?
provided you the link where you can see the districts that have that no longer participate in that. And just so the public knows, those school districts, none of their students have been negatively impacted. None of their graduating seniors have been negatively impacted. And we are, just to name a few off the top of my head, every district is subject to district performance reviews. The data are all public on DESE's website. The school and district profiles have all of our data. We have an annual civil rights data collection. We, every few years, go through tiered focus monitoring. You just saw the special education report, the civil rights report. We also do this for our English language learner programs. That's just off the top of my head, the reviews we go through. So the other piece is that we're paying for something that feels really redundant. And that's why I'm recommending that we step out of NEASC.
Great, thank you, Annie. Chris?
As somebody who has been through NEASC on committees multiple times, I completely support Annie in leaving. It is an enormous amount of work that we put on our teachers. It is something that is, it's redundant at this point. I think there was a time when it was important, but I would completely support leaving.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a vote on this a little later, along with all the other
May I
votes.
ask, may I
Yes.
ask you, Mayor, I'm just noticing, so what we have left now are updates. So while the entire committee is here, would it make sense to go through the action items? I'm sorry to disturb the flow here, but to get the votes in case people have to peel off.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and then we can come back to, well, superintendent updates and the geothermal project are a couple of things that I want to make sure that we also get to. But let's quickly get through some votes. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2024 to 2034 school department capital plan?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion by Chris, second by Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Withdrawal from NEASC. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Or a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Approval of payroll and expense warrants. Motion.
So
So-
moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we don't have school committee minutes to approve. We are going to go back to the handbooks. Do I hear a motion to approve the Hopkins Academy handbook?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and motion passes. Motion to approve the Hadley Elementary School handbook.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And motion to, do I hear a motion to approve the pre-K handbook?
So
So
moved.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Humira, that was all of them. May I just clarify? So the HA handbook, and then did you do the program of studies? Did I just not hear that? I'm not sure, maybe. I didn't.
No, we did.
No, I did not. Do I hear a motion to approve the Hopkins Academy Program of Studies as presented?
So moved.
In a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
And you did all your reorg votes. I got all those. So
Got all
great.
of,
Thank you.
okay, so Annie, thank you so much for providing the highlights of the superintendent updates. There's a lot of amazing stuff that goes on always. Thank you. Aside from the incredible highlights of like school choice up at both schools, what would you say here is really important to dive into?
I think last week, so again, these will always be, this is an email that goes to you all every week, and then I copy it into this so the public can see it. Probably the most important thing recently is two things. One that Chris just talked about, the information that we got around the lockers, which was a little bit surprising. Said, we take these things out and the price will go down. Chris and I now say it's a lot like Comcast. Take something out and the price goes up. And the enrollment being as strong as it is, which is great. So we're really happy to see that.
Thank you. I love the fact that the team is going to be participating in Day of AI. AI is definitely changing the way students learn. We can't say don't do it at all because it's just not practical. It's not what the business community is going to expect from students. They want students who are competent and capable of utilizing these tools at the right moment for the right application. So thank you so much for helping our educators get their head around it. And also, you mentioned the geothermal visit, and I'd love in particular to hone in, by the way, it was an excellent visit at Smith College. If you didn't see the Gazette article, I urge you to check it out. I'd be particularly interested in getting Chris's views on the tour and what he learned and how that provided, shed light on our project in particular. Chris.
All right. Yeah, it was a great tour, really. I mean, it opened our eyes to a lot of things, items we had not really thought about. And I have since discussed with the designers. So the timing was perfect for it. One of the biggest takeaways I took from it was the need for a backup system of some kind. Smith has one. They still have boilers, as he said, that need to be turned on in mid-January when it gets really cold out and you just need more capacity than the geothermal will supply. I did ask the facilities director there if more capacity could just be built into the system. And he said, yes, but it may be more expensive than the backup system in place. So there's, and really until we get a completed design and cost estimates, it's tough to tell. But the other part he mentioned, besides cold days in January, is what if you lose power? As we, may know at home, if we have a furnace at home, you need power to basically, kick it on. And with the geothermal system, you're going to need power to run all of the heat pumps. And so it's just a lot bigger load. And when I discussed it with the designers this morning, he was going to take a look at what kind of generator we had, what kind of power it was able to give out, and what the load might be. And of course, this, it's not all going to be determined in one day, but now he has that information. He's taking it back, and they will calculate. Again, we're looking at cost ways to, or cost avoidance. He said we'll have to know if replacing the generator might make more sense than adding a backup boiler. And I just pointed out, geez, we just replaced these generators about 8 years ago, so they're relatively new. And he said, yeah, we understand that, and they're basically taking all this information back. They were there all day today, taking measurements and doing a lot of things. So
Great.
it was
Yeah,
just great to learn this stuff that we really didn't think about.
It really was. And I too picked up on that, the need for redundancy, and they mentioned the additional well. And at 800 feet, $45,000 probably for another well, another 2 wells as backup. I appreciate, sort of having my head around what those options were. And thank you so much for working with the designers of the system to think about redundancy, not just in terms of really cold days, but also of electricity. So keep us posted on that. Annie, you mentioned in your report that the Gazette improperly captured that 2028 was when we were planning for this project to be completed, and we haven't even yet voted and gotten approval from the town on moving forward with the project. So I don't recall how they got that either, but thank you for pointing that out.
One final thing from the report, also just so you're aware, right now we're at almost $456,000 in awarded grants for this fiscal year. And we haven't ended August yet. So that's another highlight. That's totals.
Thank you, Annie. That is phenomenal news. I appreciate that. And just the continued program development, like the new computer science education grant that you just landed, and the new UMass course. So we've had GCC courses through early high school. Now we have UMass, Introduction to Sociology, starting this fall. That's excellent. Great opportunities for our students to learn and have more college preparatory experiences and credits under their belt before they even start their collegiate experience. So we haven't had a chance to do school committee reports. I ask our teammates to just share by email any CES updates or such. There's nothing to report on finance. I think everything's fine on the fields, or you're continuing to work on that. So let's plan to do that asynchronously and return next month. Monday, let's see, the next date for our meeting is September
23rd.
September 23rd. We will have a policy meeting at 4 p.m. and a regular school committee meeting at 5:30. Also, I just noted general announcements. David Phil is our new school select board liaison. Welcome, David. I'm sure we'll see him at future meetings. Anything else before we adjourn?
I'm gonna pop off. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Bye.
Your motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Move seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Hi,
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
thank you guys.
Everybody.
Have a great night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.